Great. But over to a brand new person right now, Derek. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've been a person for 31 years now, but
A
I
brand
am
new
brand
person.
new. And this one's going to be fun, everybody.
Hey man, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Cool. Well, listen, both of you guys, I just want to thank you for looking good through this presentation so far. And you guys have been on the camera this whole time. Remain you hydrated. I keep seeing you drinking some water, so that's also very healthy. Um,
Thank you.
so first off, let me just work out all the details here of sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna click the correct screen. All right. Is everybody able to see my screen there? Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome. So, hey everyone, all the attendees, and I want to kind of thank you for tuning in on my presentation. What I wanted to talk to everyone about today was something slightly different. Um, I'm going to touch on my personal journey in cannabis. I'm also going to touch on potentially a few cases anecdotally. I've just prepared this presentation, but my goal was to kind of keep it really candid and leave a lot of space for questions at the end. So if you're just joining us, my name is Derek, and I work for a company called Mika Ventures, and I own it as well. Um, Basically, what we do is we work with tiny startups, companies that are just getting off the ground, and our whole mandate is helping you put business plans and financial models together to approach investment in the cannabis industry. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years, and prior to this, my background was I owned a hardware startup in Toronto, and cannabis has been a long time passion. So when the government announced that they were legalizing, I was like, whoa, I can actually have a job in cannabis? And that was huge. That actually, literally, what I expressed to you there was huge, and it was a turning point in my life in terms of advocacy in cannabis. Um, so fast forward to today, it was about 2.5 years now. I've worked with about over 20 companies now. We've received over maybe about $2-3 million in funding over all of those projects, and maybe about I want to say 220,000 government grant dollars. So not too shabby, not too shabby at all for someone who's new. But yeah. So without further ado, what I want to go through today is just the basics. These are the kind of businesses, this is how much money it's going to cost you to get involved, and this is the kind of profit that you're looking at. Here are some things to consider. I am also going to touch on how to get involved in consulting in the cannabis industry. But yeah, any questions you guys have, even about finding a job or starting to become a consultant, please throw them into the chat, and we can get involved. Okay. So so the basics. All right. So I'm sure you've figured out by now that Health Canada is the regulating body that licenses cultivators and processors. The term processors also includes edibles kitchens as well. So that's pretty standard. They're the ones who license it. You would be applying with them for a license. That process isn't cheap, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. And the province regulates retail stores. So you would be applying with your local provincial distributor essentially to verify yourself as a potential owner, and then verify your store as a authorized store that can sell cannabis. So depending on which route you're going, if you're looking at being, I want to grow, or I want to grow a nursery, or I want to do an edibles kitchen, or I want to make CO2 extractions, then you're going to be putting in an application with Health Canada, which is a very meaty process. There's a lot of stuff involved there. You want to get your SOPs together, and you want to get a team together. You want to set some initial branding, and you want to go through all of those systematic steps for these very traditional businesses in some sense. But for a retail store, it is kind of different. Then you're applying with the province. Maybe it's a little less meaty. They have very meaty security requirements, but the rest of it is not too bad. Um, One thing I will want to touch on is there are a lot of capital intensive blockades. And what that means is it's not cheap to open a bank account. It at this current point, I think it costs about $6,000 to open a bank account versus if you had a regular business, then it's $5 a month. So that's a very, very big gap there. But this is because, the banks are still kind of wary of, they're wary of it, which doesn't make any sense. Same thing with loans. If you're expecting that you could apply to the bank for a loan, um, I would challenge that assumption. I've worked with too many clients that we've started out in that route, and I just kept telling them, guys, these are not the people that are going to give you cash. Um, and we end up like going through friends and family rounds essentially and structuring things those ways. But one thing I will say is be persistent. There were a lot of business plans that I started out with maybe 2.5 years ago that I said in my head, I was like, this is not going to work. There was one business plan that I did for a cultivator where they wanted to grow everything in tents in a 10,000 square foot facility. And I was like, listen, this is crazy. What you're talking about is crazy. Fast forward to today, that's actually happening and it's actually working well. So I've learned a lot of lessons along the way about persistence and entrepreneurship. And so my key message, if you take one thing out of this, is follow that intuition and be persistent with it. Yep. All right. So far so good. Um, Cultivators. Let's talk a little bit about a cultivation business and what that looks like. So um, if you have a background in cultivation or you have any experience, with farming, then this is a very, very good contender. And if you feel like you're in an environment where you can grow cannabis, excellent outdoor cannabis, or you can grow good indoor cannabis, then that's definitely worth considering. If you have access to land or you have a relative that's willing to like let you use their land or loan you the land for cheap or something like that, that is an excellent candidate for a cannabis business. You do want to make sure that your local zoning area will allow you. Some areas have fervently said no cannabis businesses in this zone. So just check in on that. But if you are a go on a cultivation business, I would tell you to make sure that you are able to raise at least 700,000 to to cover all of your costs, including putting a foundation down, putting some structures together, um, getting through your licensing with a licensing consultant. Um, you basically want to just try and make sure that you have everything covered. 700,000 is a minimum, but most of the cases that we worked on, they touch about 1.3 million in total costs. So it is much higher. It's quite expensive. It's quite up there. But the one thing about your cultivation business is you are setting up something really big here. You're not doing a small, even if you're doing a micro cultivation, and all my clients have been micro cultivation clients, you're still looking at a very big endeavor. And so, be ready to raise at least, oops, sorry about that. Ready to raise at least 1.3 million. And hopefully you can get that through a friends and family round. So you don't have to, as I mentioned, deal with the banks and try to get a loan from them. Because again, they don't see the value in these plans, no matter how tight the plan is. But that being said, though, cultivators, pretty hefty profit there, essentially. You're looking at your net after all your costs and all your stuff, including CPP, EI, the various tax that you basically pay. You are looking at up to about 20%, maybe even more, actually. To be honest, I was very conservative there because I've seen up to 33 or 36%. That after we've done all the work, and then we were like, wow, this is very lucrative, surprisingly. Um, as a micro, you can expect to sell, above $1 million worth of cannabis, up to probably about 3 million. This is because of the restriction on your canopy size at 1,250 square feet. So that is the restriction for a micro cultivator, is that you can use a maximum canopy size of 1,250 square feet, but your overall facility can be X number of feet. Yeah, that can be as big as you want it to be, but the space that you're growing your plants in has to be 1,250 for the micro only. The reason I keep telling you the micro is a good idea is because the micro is easier to get through the door with Health Canada. The licensing time, start to finish there, it's about up to 6 months at this current point. But if you were saying, I want to go for a standard cultivation, which is what, all of the big companies that you're seeing publicly traded, they are standard cultivators. That takes a lot longer. that requires hefty security clearance to kind of, and you're probably going to want to make a bigger plan there, so this 1.3 million, that's going to be really tight if you're trying to do a standard cultivation business. So that's why I recommend all my clients, we start as micros. Just figure out your baby steps, and then maybe a year or two from now you can make that amendment to make this make it a standard cultivation business. So okay, talking about processing businesses. Frick. Processing businesses are very interesting because they have a high net profit. Again, I put 25% here conservatively, but we're looking at something like 36-40% there. That's almost crazy high. But the issue there is that you do require a high capital investment and a lot of getting your processes perfect. So if you have a background in corporate, in making, in developing processes for corporate clients, and a background of excellence there, that the processing business is going to be an interesting place for you. Plan to rent maybe about 3 or 4 thousand square feet, for your processing business, but you can go as low as like maybe about 1,500 or so. But I would have a lot more space because again, you're going to need space for your employees to come in, derobe, have a little kitchen for them to like convene in, those kind of things, right? But yeah, so your annual cash flow, essentially this your annual cash flow is where your constraint is, because for microprocessors, your restriction is 600 kilograms of dried produce max, and that's not produce out, that's produce in. So you can process a maximum of 600 kilograms per year of product into whatever is your final product. So that sounds like a lot, like a little. It is. It's not a little. It's a hefty amount essentially. There for a micro, I think when you're first getting your business together, you'll kind of struggle to even hit that full mark there. But your cash flows at that point, if you're processing about 600 kilograms, is in the 1.5 million zone, and like I said, you can safely calculate a net profit of about 25% on that, to pay your financial vehicles and things back. Edibles kitchens. Okay, so this is really interesting because yes, it is a micro processing or standard processing business in terms of Health Canada license, but you do not at all need to spend a lot of money to get your edibles kitchen going together. It's the same as any GPP, GMP, food grade facility. So you just need to meet the same requirements of being able to clean that, being able to, so you've got like your secured storage and all those kind of basics, but you don't have to obtain, expensive gear like, what's it called? An extraction machine and things like that. Even though your license will permit you to do so, you can avoid those costs by buying a product from a company like Nextleaf. Actually, Nextleaf has excellent distillates, and they'd be willing to like work with you to like do your distillate to specification. So that then works out to be great. Work with a toll processor, get a product, get inputs at your specification. You just work with the food, and I would recommend doing your testing on site. Ideally, you still will have to do third-party testing, but also build some testing on site. That is what is going to cost you a lot of the money. You're going to look at maybe about $70,000-$80,000 in testing equipment, and $20,000 in all kitchen equipment. So, um, so that's edibles businesses. Romain, anything so far? Any questions? Any notes?
There are actually. If you want to look at the Q&A section down the screen, you can actually, if you want, go through those questions and answer.
Yeah, please. In fact, to be honest, I'm just trying to get my video to show the chat. I'm not seeing the chat on my thing here. Oh, show chat. Sorry, people. This is the first time I'm using a computer.
But I can definitely start, with some of the questions that I have right now. Yeah.
No problem. I just actually wanted to check and see if this is relevant for this audience, but I actually have a few more slides to go through. And how are we doing on time?
Well, you still have a good 8-9 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So I'll go quick through the rest because I do want to like work on people's questions here. All right. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. So retailers, most of my clients, I want to say 60% of them in 2020 have been retailers. This is an easier in entry point. You're looking at about $350,000. And if you have about 700,000, you'll really be able to get it going well. Your net profit is low. This is because the provinces, retain a bulk of the profit made there. That's okay because the volumes are crazy high. So you make your money in selling more and more and more of it, essentially. Um, in the GTA, we're seeing extremely high annual cash flows there. We're seeing stores that are about 1,000 square feet selling about $1.5 million, $2 million worth of cannabis annually. That is very high. Expect that your business, if it's in the 2,000 square feet zone, that you want to sell about $3 to $4 million worth of cannabis. Your average gross profit on that, calculate that at about 17%, and you can calculate your net profits at about 12 to 15%. So, like I said, it's a bit lower than the processing and cultivation businesses, but it's a bit cheaper to enter. And if if you're interested in building community, then a retail business is for you. So that's my notes there. Misconceptions about starting a business in cannabis. You need consultants. Not at all true, but you will save yourself a lot of time. These are professionals that do this work in and out day after day, and that makes them slowly a little bit more and more efficient. You want to leverage that. Definitely analyze the costs of it. I mean, if they're charging an arm and a leg, then potentially see if you can do things yourself. But yeah, consider your consultants. This is a space full of consultants. I'm a consultant as well. Um, it's very lucrative. That is a bit of a misconception. It is less lucrative than you think, but it is also much more lucrative once you get started. Once you get through the initial hurdles, that's when this is really exciting. Just an idea is enough. No, absolutely. Gone are the days where good ideas are worth anything. It's all about execution. Um, yeah, it's all about execution. And the last misconception is that the big companies have gobbled up everything. And that's not true at all. Listen, the thing is, social mood has changed. People don't trust big companies now, especially if they've got bullshit rhetoric. Pardon my French there. But if you're looking at building a craft business and really building community, then you have a solid opportunity. Okay, do's and don'ts. Research online. All the information you need is available on the internet. It's just several Google searches and obsessive late night research sessions away. So just spend your time, keep researching, keep obsessing about what you're trying to build. You'll get there. Be wary of turnkey solutions, people who say that they're going to offer you um, do everything for you for some high price. You want to evaluate, you want to get a line by line item essentially from any consultant that's telling you they'll do something like that. Like I said, leverage the consultants for heavy lifting. Evaluate, feel free to shop around, but during that time, be pleasant with your consultants because this industry is tiny, tiny, tiny. And it's not that you're going to burn yourself right away, but everybody talks. Okay, so touching on becoming a consultant in the space, what I'd recommend is just get involved in anything. Anyone that's doing kind of anything, just get involved with it in any way that you can. Maybe do it for free, maybe do it for low pay. Don't really worry about that because your first few cases, you're going to learn a lot. I'm still in the learning phase and I've been doing this 2.5 years, as I mentioned, and I do it full time. Um, but I did start part time initially, especially if you have something else where you're getting cash in, then just kind of wade in slowly. And then once you have one or two active clients and you've got enough cash and you're good for about 4 or 5 months of good cash there, that's when you can start saying, I want to be a consultant full time in cannabis. It does take time, as I mentioned. You'll learn everything you need on the job as you go. Your clients will pay you, and you'll be figuring out problems, and you'll be learning. You'll be saving those learnings. Um, but it really is about excellent customer service. It's all about that. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I'm going to leave this page up as we answer some questions. Romain, did you want to ask me some of the questions?
Absolutely, yes. Okay, we have a few things actually, and I shared your email address again. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
For them to for all those questions. We have how much to set up a micro grow? Is it possible to do it solo?
Yeah, could you elaborate on that question, whoever's asking it? So the question, as I understood, is how much to set up a micro row? Can you do it alone? I don't understand the can you do it alone part.
Can you do it solo? Okay, let's move on to another one and see if we have.
Actually, if I could, I'd love to just try to answer that question.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, you can do it solo. You can do all the projects yourself, especially if you have a background in putting SOPs together, because really the meat and potatoes of your application is your quality SOPs, a quality business plan. It's not that Health Canada is reviewing this to see how efficient your business is going to be, but they just want to see that you're serious. So if you're sitting there to do it alone, that's not a problem. The first client that I ever worked with was in Quebec, and he was doing it alone, but it did take him 2 years. So do chat with a consultant. Whoever is asking that question, please do chat with me. Give me a call or an email today. And at the very least, advice is always free. So I'm totally happy to just send you in some direction with advice and keep giving you advice. That's not a problem. Yeah, sorry, Romain, go ahead.
Have you worked with anyone in Saskatchewan yet?
Yes, oddly enough, I have, but it's just that one single client essentially. Is there something specific related to Saskatchewan?
Well, Richard said that he's in the middle of getting his business started.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was wondering, so I'm sure he'll be in touch with you very soon.
I like that.
Uh, um, why do you believe craft is king?
Oh, well, it's also that's the regular rhetoric that's out there, but I'm saying that because I want to kind of justify it. Um, Cannabis is an industry of completely passionate people. Everybody there thinks they know best, but I love the intrinsic, like the reason they think that is because they really work directly with this plant, and why that's relevant is that people who buy cannabis, you're kind of buying a story. You're kind of buying a bit of who is this person that grew it for you. That's very similar to the organic vegetables, kind of like, why do you buy organic vegetables? Why do you buy vegetables from like direct from farm to table, kind of. So we are saying that with cannabis is that cannabis consumers are very passionate about where it comes from, and therefore businesses that share that value directly are able to connect one-on-one with their customer base, and that is really what's key in an industry like this. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Derek, we're just going to be short of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very insightful,
Absolutely. Thank you, every
information.
comment here that says